Seltzer Kings
podcasts.
In the military, veterans answer the call to serve. Now it's our turn. At Hire Heroes USA, they're changing lives, helping veterans and military spouses secure meaningful careers, all at no cost.
With over 100,000 success stories and counting nationwide, they're connecting skilled veterans with employers who recognize their true value. Visit hireheroesusa.org to access their services or to support their mission. What does an 18-year veteran of the tech industry and a 20-year veteran of the military have in common? More than you might think. Welcome, everyone, to the Second Act podcast, leveling up your life's journey.
Michael, how you doing, sir?
John, I'm looking forward to this episode today and some of our announcements before we even kick it off with our guest.
Oh.
Yeah,
You have
we've got
announcements,
some good
huh?
stuff. Good stuff to share with the audience. You know, aside from our membership that we launched and are sharing some interesting content with that's only available to them, we're also giving away some stuff.
Okay.
For anybody who is willing to share their second act story, if they go to www.whatisyoursecondAct.com, give us your name, email, and your short blurb about what your second act story is. We're going to be making announcements weekly for giveaways. We're just going to be giving away a gift card for some product or service that is available to anyone, anywhere, for the most part.
I love it.
Just because. So we're
Okay.
pretty excited about that.
Do I get a couple of those entries since I've shared my second act several times?
I think we are disqualified, unfortunately. Yeah.
Read the fine print before you enter. Just kidding. That's awesome.
No, but-
that's cool.
Yeah.
What a great way to hear some other stories from people who are doing things that we talk about on a daily basis here on the show. So that's really cool.
Yeah. And, you know, if there's an interesting story out there that people are sharing, you might get a mention on one of the episodes just to kick things off, especially if it's just you and me. You know, we're always looking to continue building our community of folks who are pursuing their second act, whatever that is.
Yeah.
And anything we can do to help strengthen that community and let people know that there's stories and journeys out there just like theirs, I think it's a powerful direction to go in.
Yeah. Man, that's awesome. So sign up, and we'll have that link in the show notes, and I'm sure we'll repeat it again throughout several of our episodes, but enter away, and we'd love to share some of those stories too when we get them. That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I'm really excited for this episode too. Not only do we have a great conversation up ahead of us, but this guest went to school to the same place I did, Oral Roberts University, and he has such a diverse background and he's gone a totally different direction than I went. So I'm really interested in that regard, but just to hear how he's evolved and adapted from where he was when he graduated. So I'll get at it, but in this week's episode, we are joined by Nick Rotola, founder and CEO of Up, a curated social platform for positive, uplifting content and creators to reverse the harms of social media on youth mental health. So Nick is a native to Wichita, Kansas. He spent his college years, like I said, at Oral Roberts University, his and mine alma mater, and landed in the professional sports world playing baseball for Oral Roberts University, then the Wichita Wingnuts, the Claiborne Railroaders, and Gateway Grizzlies. When his baseball career came to a close, Nick pursued entrepreneurship with a strong sense of faith and purpose, where he founded multiple companies, including Baseball IQ, We3 Group, and Up. Outside of work, Nick enjoys spending time with his wife and 2 kids, doing all the fun things the Midwest has to offer. So, man, We're fighting through some technical difficulties, but welcome to the show, Nick.
Welcome.
Yeah, it's good to be here. One of the things you learn as a baseball player is to be comfortable being uncomfortable. So I think somebody's coming at me with a cyber attack, but I'm on here. I think we're good. My internet went down, but all good. Glad to be here. Thanks for the intro, John.
Yeah. When I read Cleburne, and I can't pronounce it right, I haven't rehearsed this very well.
Feels authentic. I mean, authentic sells, man. That's the new fake. So,
well, we try here. We try, Nick. So, man, I'm excited to have you on again, not just because you're an ORU alum and doing amazing things, but I know you are out there fighting for a lot of other people that are like our listeners. So we're going to dig right into it. And we always start every episode with learning a little bit more about our guest. And you, Nick, grew up in Wichita, Kansas. So tell us about your childhood growing up there and some of the important moments that help shape maybe who you are today.
Yeah. I'll tell a story that I've come to the quickest way to describe how I grew up.
Okay.
My dad's a pastor at Rhema Bible College. He always gave away everything he had. He just loved to give and wasn't, you don't make very much money. If you want to be one of the ways to want to become a big businessman is to grow up son of a pastor and have nothing. But we were going on a trip to Florida and he needed enough money to get there and back for gas. And so he brought us brothers together. I was like 6 or 7. My older brother's like 13 and 14. And so there was a big gap there. And he was like, hey, what can you chip in? Can you get what you got, what you've saved up and chip it in? Because we need to make this trip happen. And I just remember going to my room and praying, God, give me some money and put it under my bed so I can give it to my dad. Give me some money and put it under my bed and give me some money. Because I believe that, with faith, you can move mountains. And and I just remember praying until I fell asleep and then, ended up, waking up and whatever happened and we were able to get there. But I think the easiest way to describe who I am today is I kind of never stopped trying to get money and put it under the bed so I can give it to people that need it. The kind of people that are called to ministry, I want to be a big, big funder of those kind of people. I wish I had their heart. I wish I had my dad's clean hands, pure heart. The world kind of calloused me, I'm not going to lie, and I went through some crap. And I wish I had that kind of like soft, happy all the time, pure joy Christian vibe. But I'm a lot more like I'm not afraid of anything. I can take on anything. I can build big, big businesses, and I want to be a financier of the kingdom. So that's one childhood experience. And then just the part where my older brothers were a lot older than me. That shapes a lot. They were both high achievers. And, when you grow up losing at everything you do, it's a lot different than how kids are growing up today. So I had a lot of grit and wanted to win so bad and wanted to get bigger, faster, stronger and all that. And so that stuff helped me do the pro baseball thing. And the grit part definitely is a huge variable in business. That's a big core competency for me. Compared to a lot of people I come across. And so that's just part of the stuff God brought me through and how he shaped me. So
Nick, you went to Oral Roberts like John did, and then into professional baseball with some of these lessons learned and values instilled from your dad, from your brothers, from just your sort of early childhood life journey. What was it that influenced your decision to remain faithful to staying in the Midwest area and also pursuing a career into athletics? Why athletics versus some other track right out of the gate?
I think somebody said you play baseball until they tell you can't anymore. And so that's what I kind of did. I kind of played until they just were like, hey, you got to be a few years younger to keep going at this level or whatever. And I was kind of racing against the clock. So for whatever reason, my baseball career didn't work out, and I got to like AA level independent ball, so MLB partner league AA level. So I'm still see my fair share of 100-mile-an-hour fastballs, but just wasn't able to. Just was right there, but it was great. God prepared me for such time as this, and Yeah, I mean, Oral Roberts is, in my opinion, the best university in the world. I didn't go to any. I just went to two. That was perfect for me. That's kind of how I grew up. My dad's from Brooklyn, my mom's from New Jersey, so I kind of grew up like kind of
Wow.
kind of too tough for anybody around here. Kind of like, it's just you're different. It's a different upbringing there, Brooklyn, Jersey, in the '80s during all the drugs and all that. My mom's parents died when she was really young, so she was out on her own as a 15, 16
Yeah.
year old. So she taught a tremendous amount of independence for us. We were always doing our own stuff. She wasn't jumping to solve any of our problems. We were solving our own problems. So I guess that upbringing plus the ORU confidence, and then just the truth is, if you build, I'm called to build in technology. I've tried a couple of the things, but I can definitely build the biggest, best, most impactful companies in technology. I think most of the world hinges on these 100, 500 coders in Silicon Valley with a certain worldview, programming certain AI, programming certain algorithms that sway so much of culture. And I think there's a big pendulum swing with guys like me saying, you know what, I have a different worldview almost completely than you. And now it's our turn. Like, you guys had your turn, starting in 2008, and we have the most depressed, anxious, suicidal generation of all time. Kids are, I think the average Gen Z hasn't made a new friend in 5 years, so it's like there's feeling like a pendulum swing. I like the Midwest because for me, it's a good support system. And the coasts where a lot of this tech is typically funded, where you typically find the talent, it's just gone so crazy. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's like they're talking different languages than you. And so our sweet spot has been Midwest. I'm still in my dad's church, and we felt called to help support it. We were children's pastors for a couple of years out of school. And so we wanted to be a part of the church. We love the Midwest. You can live like the Team Super Bowl ads kept saying shop like a billionaire. I just keep thinking that's how you live in Wichita, man. You freaking, like, you want to feel like a mogul, come here, and third best cost of living in the country. And so for me, it was a lot of value fit people. We're nearby, cheap cost of living, and then just being around my dad's church, which is really Bible based and preaching about unity and all that stuff, and the power of walking in the Holy Spirit. So for me, it is a good fit. We might end up somewhere else one day, but I doubt it'll be on the coast, maybe Texas. But
how did they go from Brooklyn, New Jersey area to Kansas? What was that?
Yeah,
transition?
So the story goes, my dad was a really top athlete in Florida. Most of the people in Brooklyn, New Jersey moved to South Florida in the 80s to get away from all the drug stuff that was going on. My parents both did that. My mom was on her own. My dad was a top athlete in the state, #1 tennis player, and then was a big baseball player as well. Got a full ride to Georgia. Felt really convicted, just got saved, and felt like he should turn it down and go to Rhema Bible College and become a pastor and go all in. And they were dating at the time, got married, and then my mom moved with them. So they were in Tulsa. Then once in Tulsa, they went to California to be youth pastors, and they were praying over a map one day, and God showed them 2 cities. I think it was like Wichita and Joplin, Missouri, randomly, that, they felt like the Spirit was calling them those cities. They called Rhema and said, hey, we feel like we're called to either go to Wichita or Joplin. And they said, we just hung up with a church in Wichita. It's the first church in Wichita that's ever asked for a Rhema, pastor.
Wow.
And so we think you should go there. So that he kind of knew, and that's how we got to Wichita. And I think they had maybe 12 people the first day. One church. Now we have at least 100 churches, a lot in the 1040 window, a couple here locally. We've saved 8 million people, about 7.5 million people through crusade evangelism. So we've been big funders of crusades. And so my dad's made a really big impact. And again, I think my calling just is a kind of a natural evolution of my dad, setting a great example. I don't want to just empty my own pockets and put it in to fund missions and clean water and ending sex trafficking and all these good things. I want to build massive businesses that fund this stuff. And so that's kind of his calling and my calling come together and how we end up here.
Nick, so much of your story is so compelling and resonant of my life. But my parents raised me in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And I grew up there, product of ORU, as we already said. But my wife went to Rhema, and that's where I met her. But for those that don't know, I'll speak a little bit about ORU, and it is a Christian college that sets itself apart. And the purpose of the college is to send out Christian believers into every man's world. That's part of the call. And so to see you go from graduating from ORU and doing the things that you're doing that are impacting Wall Street and Main Street, Wichita, is exactly what the founder of Oral Roberts wanted. And so it's amazing to see that. And I was, as I said before we started recording, I was back there 2 weeks ago for our graduation, and it's the largest graduating class that ORU has had to date. Still a small school, but we graduated 937 students, and every one of those students is going out into the world with two missions: one, to change the world for Jesus Christ, and then two, to make an impact in their community. And so it's pretty cool to see that you're doing that and living out the founder's mission. So congrats on that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's not me, but he that's in me. There's a couple verses that I live by. People typically know, trust the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding. And then the next verse, for some reason, people don't quote as often, but it says, acknowledge me in all your ways, and I'll keep your path straight. Basically saying, give God the credit along the way, and he'll just keep. And that's really what we're all trying to do, is we want to work in our calling. Our calling is what we're the world's best at. We all want to add value. We want to add ridiculous value. And I had this crazy life event where I went from Eastern Michigan, a real kind of small market D1, in the Mid-American Conference up in the north, freezing my arm off. And it was just positioning and posture. I had gotten better for sure. I'd gotten bigger, faster, stronger. And when I got on campus at ORU, much better baseball program, really, really historic. Went to the College World Series last year, but just really historic baseball program. And I got there, and I just had a different posture about me. I was bigger, faster, stronger than I was when I showed up on the smaller school campus. But then the head coach just basically treated me like I was a stud on day one, and he basically said, "You're going to be great here." And so for me, it was a good positioning, and I had the good posture. And to me, that's so many of us. It's either our posture's wrong or our positioning wrong. I was a great salesman, but I had a bad company, and we were only doing, 6 figures a year. And I started figuring out how to sell different products that people wanted more. And I found myself doing 6-figure deals by themselves. There was one point, 2022, where I was selling $500,000 worth of product a month by myself as only salesman at our company. So I think like positioning and posture are so important. And, I've been blessed that God's put me in awesome, awesome positions. And I've just had to keep a little bit of good posture and confidence and knowing that I could do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So,
yeah. Wow.
When you talked about the crusade and 7.5 million people saving them, what did you mean? What does that mean? I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah. So my dad had a call in his heart in 2007 that our church was going to save 20 million people. And so the only way to do something crazy like that is to look at crusade evangelism. And so there's these groups that launch from the U.S. mainly, and they go and they put on a stage and they do marketing in the schools. And for, $50,000, you could generally save at least 50,000 people, sometimes 200,000 people. So it's like $1 per soul is kind of the easy math. And so over the years, we've been faithful to our church. We funded those crusades, and we've sent crusade evangelism all over the world, especially in the 1040 window in Africa and Southeast Asia. And they've received 7.5 million confirmations of salvation. Basically, people that never heard the gospel before, hearing it for the first time and giving their life to Christ. And there's this crazy stat people don't really know, which is 4 billion people have never heard the gospel once. So we get so blue in the face thinking about the U.S. and people that have heard it 5, 6, 7 times. But there's this massive part of the world that's never heard it once. And so you have 2.7 billion professed Christians out of 4 billion. That's a really high rate. So anyway, I feel called to those other 4 billion. How can we get the gospel to those people? And I believe that God's helping me build big businesses so I can reach those people and bring them the gospel of love. So many people that are broken are coming dead and walking away alive. All kinds of people can't walk and are starting to walk for the first time. All kinds of blind people can see. So, the Jesus, the miracles that happen in the Bible that feel like a folk tale, they're alive and well. And to me, that transcends science. It transcends family. That faith is actually the top thing in my life, not just something I talk about. And so, in order to put that first, you really got to prioritize it. And for me, that has to be really doubling down on it almost daily, because my flesh just takes over and my greed takes over and whatever, and it takes you down all kinds of rabbit holes. But so that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about crusades and what I want to do with crusades, and where I believe God keeps blessing me with businesses and which keep growing. Yeah.
And so that's a great segue, telling us a little bit about your journey that takes you into an entrepreneurial role, and you starting several companies, and then kind of explain the relationship as you have been, but the relationship between those companies and the relationship between your core values, baseball, and the ventures that you have pursued. Let's kind of talk about what goal is in sight.
Sure. So, in 2016, I started a company, a really bad company, called American Baseball Camps. And, I needed gas money to get home. It's funny, I have these 2 gas money stories, but I didn't have enough money to get home from North Carolina. I was playing summer ball. And so I put on this BS baseball camp, gave it a big name, got t-shirts. I needed $400. I made $1,200, and I thought I was some rich guy. I thought I was going to never have to work again. I was like, I'm such a hot shot now. So I come back, I'm like getting myself steaks and stuff that I wanted to eat, and then I just kind of got this fever of like, well, I can do more camps. So the next year I needed a ring. I did enough camps to make $8,000. The next year I needed to buy a house. Down payment, I made enough camps to make $125,000 revenue. And $8,000 was the profit number. So I kind of just kept scaling it up. And then when that was during college, when my professional baseball career took off, I was playing 100 games in 103 days. And
wow.
It's no joke.
Whoa.
The strain on you traveling that much, because we had some games, 12 hours away. That kind of thing, driving through the night all the time. We actually took a bus from Cleburne to Winnipeg, Canada. So however far that is, Cleburne, Texas. Anyway.
Oh my gosh.
Taking some long bus rides, and, that's no state to scale a business. And so with spotty Wi-Fi and some grit, I was able to kind of hold it together. But I decided to scale down that business, focus on my baseball career. And so I kind of held that stagnant for a while. And then when I retired, it was a kind of a freak thing that happened, a health scare, and it ended up being okay. But I retired kind of abruptly, and I happened to get home the night where my friend Corey had just joined this blockchain startup, and he said, you should jump in with me. And so we jump into this blockchain startup, and we just blow this thing up. It was crazy. It was just right timing, right guys, right spot, good positioning, good posture. And we basically take it from the very beginning to 3 billion market cap in 4 months, 4 or 5 months. Wow. And so we're growing, we're doubling every day, it's just gone crazy. And we did some things that no one had done at the time as a company to grow. And one of them is we really had a good viral marketing strategy where we had about 300,000 in our community. And typically as a business, you think, okay, we can reach 300,000 people. But what companies don't realize is if they can mobilize their customers, if there's a reason for the customers to promote it, and let's say each customer has 2,000 followers, now you've got 60 million, maybe 600 million's the math there. I'm having trouble doing that off the top of my head. But you have a much bigger reach than 300,000. I think I know it's 600 million. So from that, we were able, like we had one day with 9 million tweets, for example, in one day. So, how many startups 4 months old are having 9 million tweets? Coca-Cola can't even dream of having 9 million tweets in a month, So it really, we kind of jumped in that crazy fast growing industry. I don't know why God put me there other than to say, I got a crash course on what does scaling in unicorn look like? What did the team look like? What was the work ethic? How did we mobilize people? How did we create a structure where people wanted to help us grow and talk about us? And the whole time I just kept thinking, man, I want to build this for the kingdom. How can I build this for the kingdom? How can I affect people in a good way with the things I've learned here? How can I take what the secular world is doing to spread a mission and mobilize a movement? And how can I do that for good? And God took me on a couple other journeys, and we ended up coming to the realization that we have this mental health crisis. That's sort of the big problem with our culture. And, we got these Gen Zs that they're the first generation to grow up with social media while going through puberty. And the interesting thing is, like, we get all of our, most of our brain cells and neurons by 5. The age 5 to 15 is just about figuring out which ones to use at what times. And the big attack of the enemy is to get people early and to show them bad things, take them down bad rabbit holes. And so we have this whole generation of people, excuse my language, that's watching hardcore porn before they have their first kiss. And that's, instead of living their own lives, they're watching other people live their lives. And who's deciding what people they see? Who's deciding the kind of lives they see and decide to live themselves? It's these 50 or 500 white guys in Silicon Valley with the most godless worldview we've ever seen, where they're changing their mind about what they believe every few years. And so it's very interesting. We want to disrupt in that space. We think we have a really sweet model with Up. We are pre-launch. We're very early days, but we have insane traction. And some of the world's biggest creators are sick and tired of the status quo. We're getting talent from the biggest tech companies in the world at will. There are a lot of people that have been a part of this problem that are really sick of it and want to fix it. And so that's what we're doing with Up. That's what God kind of took me through. My story with Baseball IQ is that after building the big startup, being a part of that company, and I was just on the marketing side of the company, wasn't like in charge or anything. God, I just wanted to either make American baseball camps huge or scale it down, just because I needed to focus my time. And so we launched this app, Baseball IQ. We ended up acquiring a bat company, which is now trainingbats.com. So we sell wooden bats. I think we maybe sold 30 so far today, something like that online. So good day. And we have a mentorship program where minor leaguers like myself that were in that locker room can make a lot of extra money, some of them doubling their salary, mentoring high school players.
Oh,
so
cool.
we take high character baseball players and we pair them up with high school players.
Wow.
Because kids need role models. And that's the same thing we're doing with the Up platform is we're pairing high character creators rather than being an idol. We're figuring out how to turn them into role models where they can really go deep with people and teach them how, maybe how to be a man or how to be a woman or whatever, how to navigate this world. I'll leave this long talk here with a metaphor. So they were trying to figure out how people could live on Mars, and so they started building these trees indoors. First time it ever happened. They were trying to grow trees indoors, like fruit trees and all that. And they started falling over. And they realized no one ever tested this, but trees need wind. If trees didn't get blown around by the wind, their roots would never get strong enough. And so what's happening with youth culture and the problem we're solving with Up is we're protecting kids from any harm in the real world. Like we're over-parenting. We don't want them to play by themselves. There's no wind. And then they get on social media at 11 or 10 and they just get blown over. They're not ready for it. They're not ready to be manipulated for 5 hours a day, which is how long they look at this stuff. So that's my burning desire is to fix that problem. Baseball IQ, thankfully, I'm passive. I'm just a chairman. And I just get to work on it 1 or 2 hours a week, but all my time has been on the Up platform, what we're building there. And We3 is the parent company of Up.
Wow.
I think it's awesome, Nick, that you're focusing on as having a 7-year-old myself, and John's got some young kids, focusing on the mental health issues in today's youth is super important. And I don't know if you've seen the documentary, The Social Dilemma.
Oh, yeah.
There's some interesting books that are being written, one called The Anxious Generation.
Yeah.
There's another one called Bad Therapy.
Yep.
Yale Medicine has recently said for teens aged 12 to 15 who use social media 3+ hours a day, that the risk for them is twice as high in terms of having negative mental health outcomes as those who spend less time. And I encourage my son to be outside and enjoy life as a kid as much as possible. The days that John and I can probably remember, I don't know how old you are, but I certainly remember the days without computers and the internet and the 24/7 news cycle and social media basically amplifying and making the information available at any second of the day. And the algorithms are designed to feed you the things that they think you like based on your sort of interactivity with the technology. So I think you have a big mountain to climb, but I think it's a worthy mountain to climb because, you know, these adversaries, if you will, have strong network effects with their, billion plus users, hundreds of millions of users. But I think there is a recognition by everyone that this is a significant problem that other previous generations have not had to deal with.
It's kind of like, you're looking at the cigarette giants and you're saying, back in the 50s, 60s, and you're saying, how do we compete with these guys? Everybody's addicted to this stuff. We know it's terrible. Yeah, there used to be cigarettes and vending machines you could get anywhere, and kids were buying them all the time, and they ended up outlawing it, even though it was inconvenient for adults, but it was destroying the kids. And I got that from Anxious Generation, Michael, which is a great book, by the way, Jonathan Haidt, who's also in Social Dilemma. But basically, the government stepped in there, and I really think that'll happen. It's illegal to have an Instagram account younger than 13, even though 40% of U.S. kids under 13 have Instagram accounts. They just check a box, so the system's not working. And you're right, it happens so fast. And, what I would like to do, Michael, is not stop there. And John, I don't want to just say this is a problem. Kids need to get off the phone. I want to give them a solution. I want to give them an alternative.
Yeah. Yep.
There's this part in the Bible where Paul goes to Greece and he's trying to reach them. And they have all these idols. And one of them says to an unknown God, they're worshiping an unknown God. And he said, I know who you guys are talking about. I'm talking about Jesus. And I want to do the same thing. I want to use what they're used to, which is social media consumption. And I want to use it for good. And it's actually, we don't see it as that big of a challenge because the capital people are pissed off. The creators are pissed off. The parents are pissed off. The kids don't realize, they know they're unhappy, and they know they have anxiety problems.
Yeah.
And I believe that they'll be really receptive to a solution. There's this crazy drop-off that Jonathan Haidt points to in Anxious Generation, which is people born after 1995 almost don't know how big of a problem this is. We can only see it if we were born, and I was born 1993, so I feel like I'm young enough to understand what they're going through, but I'm slightly old enough where I didn't have social media in middle school. And middle school, the neurons that fire together in middle school wire together. That's also from Jonathan Haidt, meaning we either have discovery mode or defense mode, Michael. If kids are in defense mode because the algorithm is serving them this crap, 37% of girls under 13 have unwanted nudity once a week. Okay?
Yeah.
And that's just one example. I can just go on and on and on. But if their brains are literally hardwiring for life in a negative way because of consuming all this content that's so bad for them during their formative years. That's why I believe the enemy is behind. I really believe it's a spiritual war much more than a flesh and blood war. I really think that the enemy is behind this. And so I feel like spiritual battle has to be fought with spiritual weapons. And so anyway, that's a little bit what we're doing with Up. which is basically a curated content platform where all creators that are allowed to post have been pre-curated, have to have a long-standing history of being positive and uplifting on youth culture. So kids don't have to be their own brand managers. We're giving kids phones at 8. By 10, their kids in their class are on Instagram. They think they have to get an account. Now I have an account. I have to be my own brand manager. I have to forget worrying about how to make friends at school. Now I have to worry how to please the world with my content. And I have to make stuff good enough as a 10-year-old. And it's really wrecking kids, especially girls. And so, like I said, Michael, we're not stopping with the problem. We're on the solution. And we're saying, these kids and all people need a solution, something that allows them to focus on good things, which the Bible tells you to focus on whatever's true, whatever's good, whatever's honorable, whatever's uplifting. I think, John, you mentioned that you guys interview a lot of soldiers, things like that. If you're focusing on honor, if you're focusing on that kind of content, then you won't have the problem that no one wants to go in the military like you have today. We have really low, enrollment. But that's because everybody wants to be a YouTube influencer. I think it's 29% want to do that for a living. It's almost up to 50% of Gen Z would do it if they had the choice. And so anyway, it's a very interesting time. We got hit with it really fast. Since 2008, you're right, Michael, in pointing out the statistics. Basically, everything tripled. Likely to kill yourself, anxiety, depression, fear, hopelessness. And so it's like, what are we going to do about it? Obviously, we're going to fix it. Humans know how to fix problems. We create them and then we fix them. So I think it's fixing time, personally.
And to that point, it's impressive that you've got the creators of this technology who are now leaving and walking away saying, listen, there's a mess on our hands. We've got to figure out how to take it the other direction. And they're coming to you offering services and information and experience to help fix the mess that's been created. And that's what I love. I see that all over, throughout different industries, people coming and saying, hey, we recognize that if our generations behind us continue down this path, the effect is going to be, impossible to get back on the right path. And so I love that they're joining up with you in solidarity.
Yeah, it's disappointing that the social media networks have amplified all the negative stuff. And I love that you're focusing on the positive stuff. We focus primarily on positive aspects of people's journeys through our podcast. But you can go back to before this stuff, and the nightly news would start out with a car crash or a murder or a robbery, because that stuff sells.
Yep.
So, but there's that aspect of it. And then I think one of the really difficult things one of the difficult challenges to solve is the comparison that you still need to get rid of, because social media enables on any platform the comparison of me versus somebody else. Like, I see what somebody else has or is doing, and I'm sort of comparing my life and my situation against that. So if you have or are working on a solution to allow people to be content or happy in their current situation, regardless of how other people are living their lives, I think you're going to make some very significant progress, because that's, I think, one of the major causes of anxiety, depression, and suicidal thoughts is, like, I see all these people who allegedly are living this amazing life on Instagram, which the majority of the time is made up. You're seeing like a 15-second video of something that was probably recorded over hours or whatever. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, Nick.
I think you pointed at the social dilemma. So what we need a social solution. They point out the problem in that documentary really well, and Jonathan Haidt points out the problem. It's the business model of the platform. Once you decide it's going to be an ad-based platform, just like the TV shows, you have to get viewers as high as possible. So if negative news outranks positive news 6-1, it's a no-brainer. But with the subscription model, which really just got popular recently, you don't have to charge very much. Very, very little. All this hoopla that Facebook and Instagram are doing to people and TikTok is just for a couple bucks a month. They're manipulating you in all these different directions for just to go from $1 to $2 on you, you know? So on a personal basis, I think there's a lot of parents out there who will pay $1 for the kid to not be manipulated and have their worldview completely turned upside down. So that's why the kid's seeing the head sawed off across the world. No one was meant to see that video except for some CIA agents or whatever. I don't know much about that, but like that's the burden of a soldier, not of the 9-year-old in Wichita or in near the redwoods and it's like, so I mean I'm a great example. I downloaded TikTok for the first time. My 5th video, I screen recorded the whole sign up, was a 5-year-old girl calling 911 because both of her parents were dead in the other room and there was a pool of blood, and she was trying to explain to the 911 operator what was happening. And she was 5 and she didn't, know her address or whatever, and she was trying to help and it was like a 7-minute video. Why is anyone in the world seeing that video? It's because of disgusting business model and disgusting business people.
Yeah.
The defective people at Meta say that Zuckerberg and these guys have a switch that they could slide up and down. If they want to feed the world more negative and make a little bit more money for quarterly earnings, they slide their little gauge, and they use push notifications to suck you in, and then they just prioritize the feed. We're looking at it from the complete opposite thing and saying, okay, what if we built something that was good for mental health? Where would we start? Well, it starts with the brain. We have the benefit of brain scans. We can hook kids up to an EEG brain cap, and we know when the prefrontal cortex is getting effed up or not. And we just say, we want this to fire in a healthy way. What kind of content does that? Well, it's turning out it's good things. It's people watching people overcome challenges, or people giving, or, the good. And this stuff's all on Instagram. It's all on TikTok.
Yeah.
It's just pushed way down because these guys are sliding that scale, and there's really no reason to slide it down because they got shareholder pressure. They got thousands, hundreds of thousands of mouths to feed. And so they're kind of stuck. It's the solution of a small, innovative company. And I think we will put enough pressure that the legislators will start to get involved. Be Real just did it. They got to 200 million downloads really quick, saying, hey, let's get rid of this fake makeup, plastic Instagram crap, and let's just have people be real for a second and just take an authentic picture. And they did a cool job, and I think they changed a lot of people's minds by just having the balls to stick up to these guys and come up with their own platform. By the way, 2 guys that weren't even tech entrepreneurs, didn't have access to capital, just regular guys that were like, the world's messed up, let's build something that solves this problem. And so for whatever reason, that fear creeps in, where I think a lot of people see this problem, they say, oh, well, these guys are too big. Well, I mean, you look at who the Fortune 500 were back in 1994, they're almost all different. So there's this wave every 30 years where new people come in and they solve new kinds of problems. I don't think Steve Jobs envisioned this when he created the iPhone. I think he would be on fire to fix the problem if he were alive today. And I don't think Zuckerberg thought this was going to happen either. I think it got way too big, way too fast. 5 hours a day is a long time. That's what these kids are. That's how long they're consuming this content.
Yeah. I can assure you my son at 8 years old will not be getting a phone. He's not getting a phone at 8.
So, Michael, hopefully Up can be a bridge where at least if he's begging for social media, you can start him off with Up. And then at 16, when they're able to drive, I think that's when you can say, okay, now you can navigate this world. But if you can't even drive a car, I don't think you should be navigating all this stuff. Yeah.
I agree. It's hard for adults to even navigate it sometimes, let alone the youth of today.
I think adults need a positive app too that can charge them and improve their mental health. I mean, adults are on 100%. Anti-anxiety pills too. And the pills are not the solution. They're just Band-Aids. We need to solve the problem. You mentioned soldiers, John. I think PTSD victims need their own feed. I mean, why should they have
100%
this gun violence thrown at them randomly? And, they can't even stop it. Or whatever it is that might trigger them. I think there could be curated feeds for all kinds of different things that people are going through to help them.
Yeah, Nick, I see one of those problems is that when a service member comes back from any event that causes stress, whether that be combat or just a deployment or, uh, you know, combination of both, they come back and the immediate thing is to prescribe them medication. And there's very little attention given to the wellness and whole being of them, of that person. And it's a Band-Aid that quickly masks the issue, but then the issue seems to seep out eventually. And I agree with you. Having a place where positivity can be bred and re-imaged and reintegrated, I think would be a world of difference from what we're currently offering our service members. I love it.
Yeah. Thank you. And we need help. John, I think it's worth a discussion. What do people struggling with PTSD need? What do those needs look like? And how can we help them? And if our whole business is about helping people, it changes a lot of things. We've already made decisions. We're talking about probably there will be one day a week where our app won't work. And that's going to suck for a lot of people, but that's us freaking buying into what we believe, which is I personally turn my phone off on Sundays and spend my time with my family, and it's the best decision I ever made.
Yeah.
And I wish everyone would do it one day a week where they disconnect and they put their toes in the grass and enjoy their family. And our creators are going to need a break too. Part of our platform is the ability to DM and have one-on-one meetings with your favorite creators, role models. But they need a break from that access to them. And I think people need a break too. And I'm sure we'll receive a ton of pushback. I think the most pushback we'll see, honestly, John and Michael, is from the religious, religious crowd, just like Jesus saw crazy pushback from the Pharisees. I think that'll be the most pushback is like, this should be better, or, this is still whatever.
Sure.
We're never going to please those people. But what we need to do is everyone in the world knows we have a problem. We need to try to solve it. And it's going to take a team effort. And I'm telling you, the people are volunteering. And some of the best people in the world are saying, I'm in. We have a co-founder from an app with 1 billion users on our advisory board, and we're just a small startup. It doesn't make sense other than the fact that we're solving a real problem that people care about, and they can tell that it's going to be successful.
Yeah.
And, so I know it's going to take a lot of grit, but we definitely think this is worth kind of dying for, to be honest with you. And I know that persecution's going to come.
Yeah.
I'm not scared of persecution at all.
Love it.
Once you've been heckled by 11,000 guys, I made 2 errors. I made 2 errors in 1 inning in right field once, and I got heckled by 11,000. I think you can take anything. It's literally like your body is shaking. You're like, you have so much, like, whatever that is. It's like, I kept losing him in the twilight. People think, people don't realize that about baseball. In between, like, light and dark, there's this twilight time where you can really lose the ball in the sky. Anyway, I guess that's more of a therapy session than a podcast.
Well, man, Nick, we so appreciate what you're doing. As Michael said, I've got an 11-year-old and an 8-year-old boy. They don't have social media. We plan on keeping that, until they're 16. That was just a family suggestion or decision, but we see it in their friends, and it's hard. It's hard to say no, and it's hard to remain true to what you believe and to keep that foundation. But we know that it's one of the things that we can do to protect our boys and to give them the lessons that they need throughout their life. So, I appreciate that. But we're going to wrap up because I know you're short on time. We're getting close to the end, but our shows end with practical advice or an insight for those contemplating or getting started on their second act in life. So you went from, baseball to a couple ventures, and now you've got this huge goal in mind with Up and this whole huge venture that you're pursuing. What is something that you've learned from that transition that you would love to leave with our audience today? Something that's kept you going or kept you grounded or kept you motivated, that you can pass on?
Yeah, that's great. I think I had 2 second act times. The first is when I went from a small D1 to a bigger D1, and I hit 60 points higher. You know, it's pretty easy to back that up, baseball stuff, with data, against harder competition. And it was positioning and posture there. And then when I transitioned from the baseball world to business, it was positioning and posture again. So I think it's like, 1, check your posture. Make sure you're confident in what you're doing and who you are, because a little bit of confidence goes such a long way in this world, especially I think for men, because it's a very emasculated culture out there. And the second thing is positioning. So many people just go blue in the face doing what they've always done. Yeah, that's the worst thing you could say. This is how I've always done it. And so just consider repositioning yourself, like you guys did when you decided to do this podcast, and probably think about how many people you've impacted and you will impact. So it can feel a little scary. If it feels 90% right, go for it. It's never going to be 100% right. That's not how life works. So that's my success has come from positioning and posture, understand that. And then if it feels 90% right, go for it. And swing big. The whole world is impacted by 1% of people that can swing big. Don't be a 99%er. It's so easy to get on cruise control, but dig deep and think big.
Love it.
Well, Nick, that's good advice to leave our audience with for sure. And thank you for sharing your journey with our audience and with John and me today, as well as covering a really important topic with all of us having kids and many of our audience members having kids, and the mental health challenges that we're all trying to avoid or manage through. For our audience who want to learn more or get in touch with the things that you're doing, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, we just came up with the name Up. We grabbed a domain. We haven't launched a site yet. We've been building the product. Right now we are operating under we3.com, we3.com, the number 3. So that 3-digit we3.com, that's the parent company of Up. They can read a little bit more about what we're doing, but most of it is sort of in stealth. And then my LinkedIn, I'm very active on LinkedIn. Nick Rotola is a good way. I'm talking about these problems in youth culture and how we can solve them. It's better to have no phone at all coming up through childhood. But if you do have a phone, you should get Up.
That's awesome. Man, Nick, it's such a pleasure having you on, and I appreciate the time you committed to being on the show and just everything that you're doing for men like myself, for fathers like myself, and families like ours. It's such an important topic and such an important conversation these days, and so I can't thank you enough for what you're taking on, and really appreciate the time today.
Appreciate you guys saying that. Thanks for having me. Thanks for doing this too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Nick.
All right, Michael.
All right.
That's a wrap, man.
The Second Act with Michael and John stars Michael Newborn and John Ballinger. The podcast is produced by Seltzer Kings. For more information on the show, check out michaelandjohn.com, or if you'd like to get involved in the conversation, give the guys a shout on their socials at The Second Act with Michael and John on most platforms. Thanks for listening.
Seltzer Kings
Podcasts.